11 seasoned hikers ventured into the icy peaks of the Soviet Union in the month of January 1959.
They represented the best of the youth,
Had been trained for the harsh winter conditions and were fully prepared for the journey ahead. Sadly, however, they would never return to life. When searchers finally located their abandoned tent, there was something particularly eerie about the scene. The tent had been cut open from within, leaving no doubt about the cause of their disappearance. Upon further investigation, it was discovered that their boots and warm clothing were still securely in place beneath the tent, while the hikers had abandoned their shelter without even providing proper protection against the freezing night air. A total of 9 individuals perished in this tragic event, leaving behind a trail of profound mystery that still echoes more than 6 decades later. To truly unravel the mysteries behind the Dyatlov Pass incident, we must return to the fateful night in January 1959.
In January 1959, a group of Soviet university students and graduates organized a ski expedition through the northern Ural Mountains. The expedition was led by 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov, an experienced skier. There were 10 people in the original group, but one member, Yuri Yudin, became sick and turned back before the group reached the most dangerous part of the journey. That decision would save his life. The remaining 9 continued toward their destination. They were heading toward a mountain known as Koletsyakal. The name is often translated from the local Mansi language as Mountain of the Dead. The condition of the tent became one of the most critical factors in the entire investigation process. Detective work was conducted to figure out what had happened. It was found out that the tent had actually been cut open. The group of hikers that were found to be lost had appeared to have left the shelter rather quickly. Their footprints were discovered to lead down towards a forested area. However, when analyzed, it was observed that they were not properly dressed for the extreme cold weather conditions that they were facing. What was the reason behind 9 highly experienced hikers deciding to abandon a relatively safe tent in the middle of the night? That question eventually became the central piece of mystery that needed to be figured out. The thought of there being an avalanche, a landslide, an animal attack, or some other immediate danger could have potentially provided a reasonable explanation for their sudden decision. However, it was also found out during the investigation that there was no simple or straightforward answer to be found. Aspects in the entire investigation process. Upon examining the situation, the state of the tent became one of the most crucial. Investigators discovered that the tent had been intentionally cut open. It was evident that the hikers had left the shelter at a rapid pace. Their footprints led them towards a dense forest area, subsequently heading down the slope. However, it was noticed that the hikers were not properly dressed for the extreme cold weather conditions they were facing. The question surfaced as to why 9 highly experienced hikers would voluntarily decide to leave a relatively secure and well-equipped tent in the middle of the night. This critical question became the core of the major mystery at hand. If there had been an impending avalanche, a landslide, an animal attack, or another immediate and threatening danger, perhaps the decision to abandon the tent could be more easily understood. Nonetheless, investigators uncovered no straightforward or simple answer to that inquiry. Several bodies were discovered beneath a massive cedar tree in the heart of the forest. 2 of the hikers who went exploring appeared to have been attempting to make a fire inside the dense woodland. The others, however, were later found between the forest and the makeshift tent they had set up. Following the official investigation, the conclusion drawn was that hypothermia played a significant role in several deaths among the group, but some of the bodies had serious injuries that were difficult to comprehend at first, while others seemed to have no signs of external wounds. This provided a storm of theories and questions. Was there an unknown force lurking on the mountain? Was another group involved, having gotten lost in the dense foliage? Or was the explanation far more natural and much less mysterious? Several months later, the bodies of 5 more hikers were discovered in an abandoned ravine. 2 hikers had severe traumatic injuries. 3 hikers had significant chest damage. 1 hiker had a severely broken skull. Another hiker had undergone extensive surgery to remove a brain tumor. There were also reports of missing soft tissue and other disturbing details. Over the years, these alarming findings continued to fuel countless conspiracy theories. However, severe injuries can occur naturally in mountainous terrain, particularly when a person falls into a ravine or is exposed to sudden weather changes. The real question now is not merely how these hikers died, but rather, what caused them to leave their tent without warning and end up trapped in the dangerous ravine? Over the decades, dozens of explanations have been proposed. One theory involved an avalanche. Another suggested a powerful form of wind, known as a katabatic. Wind may have created dangerous conditions. Some theories claim the hikers were frightened by military activity. Others went much further, suggesting secret weapons, strange lights, or even something supernatural. But extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. No, reliable evidence has established that the hikers encountered anything supernatural. Modern researchers have increasingly focused on natural explanations. One important possibility is a delayed slab avalanche. A relatively small snow movement could have damaged the tent or created the perception of immediate danger. The hikers may then have left the tent expecting to return later. But in the darkness and extreme weather, finding their way back may have become impossible. Hypothermia, disorientation, and injuries could then have turned a frightening situation into a fatal one. In recent years, scientists have tested whether a snow slab avalanche could realistically explain the evidence. Researchers used mathematical modeling and experiments to examine the possibility. Their conclusion was that a delayed avalanche was physically plausible under certain conditions. That does not prove that an avalanche caused the deaths, but it provides a natural explanation for one of the biggest mysteries. Why would experienced hikers suddenly leave their tent? If they believed the mountain was becoming dangerous, they may have escaped downhill temporarily. The tragedy could then have resulted from a chain of events rather than a single mysterious cause. A dangerous slope, extreme darkness, freezing temperatures, injuries, and ultimately hypothermia. Even with modern research, not every detail of the Dyatlov Pass incident has a universally accepted answer. Why exactly did the hikers leave the tent? Why did they split into smaller groups? What caused the specific injuries? And why did some evidence appear so unusual? These unanswered questions have kept the story alive for generations. But perhaps the most frightening part of the story is that nothing supernatural is required. Sometimes nature itself can create a sequence of events that feels impossible to understand. 9 hikers entered the mountains in search of adventure. They never returned. Their final campsite became one of the most famous mysteries in modern history. More than 60 years later, theories continue to surround the mountain. But whether the final explanation was an avalanche, extreme weather, human error, or a combination of several factors, one fact remains certain. On that freezing night in 1959, something went terribly wrong, and the Dyatlov Pass incident remains a chilling reminder that in the wilderness, even experienced people can face forces beyond their control. What do you think happened that night?